So this is a session, and it'll have 3 parts. So the first part is going to be a little bit of an intro and some anecdotes that we're going to hear from a couple of speakers about changes that they've made and ways that they've gotten to yes. And particularly, thinking about how we work in large organizations and institutions, getting to yes. And when we were planning for this, Michelle Thornton said, well, sometimes it's not really about getting to yes, it's more about not accepting no. So we modified the title, and this is getting to yes or not accepting no, or we're working within any of that. And that in OpenScapes, Allison Horst has created this art, and I come back to this a lot of times thinking about it on a lot of different topics. But Luke Skywalker here in the swamp, getting to yes can feel like a real slog, and it can be lonely and demoralizing. So I think it's really interesting that we have so many folks here that are thinking about change and wanting to talk about it together. And I think from the session this morning, Mike said, no is the easiest position. And so I think a lot of times, like, we're trying to make change. We come back from ESIP and we've got these great ideas and want to do something different. And no is the first step to getting to yes. And so it's been interesting about preparing for this session and thinking about, I think about change a lot, because moving to the cloud is change. Asking people to change their metadata is change. Asking them to work in new ways in open science practices change. And there's a lot of research that we can draw on that gives us approaches to understanding that, like, when we're stuck, it's really, there's some kind of process. And so 2 resources I really like, this book by Cotter called Leading Change. And then the Heath brothers have written a book called Switch, which is how to make change when change is hard. And so some of the kind of framework for this session comes from those resources. But coming back to the landscape picture that we've seen a bunch of times, change really walks through these kind of steps of, there's some urgency to make change. NASA wants us to move to the cloud now. We need to build this guiding coalition. And so, who else needs to be in the room with us? How do we build this team? And so thinking about these little animals as our building this guiding coalition to form a vision. And so, what is the change that you want to happen? And then communicating that change to others and getting that buy-in, and then removing barriers. And it was interesting because Eli this morning also talked about the different kinds of barriers that she was facing that were organizational and political, and with the end users that she was working with. And then finding some of these short-term wins. So what's the quick way, what's something that we can do quickly that's going to build this momentum and build the sort of the flywheel. We talk about that a lot, of how do we make this change? And then finally, how do we sustain it? What are we doing to keep it going? So it's easy sometimes to make a change, but it's also easy to slide back into the ways that we always worked. And then finally, so anchoring that change, and how do we make it stick? And so we know that the ways that we make it stick are these diverse, inclusive teams, and that building communities are key to this. And so the next set of anecdotes are a few speakers who are going to talk to us about some of the changes that they've made. And so I just wanted you to have that context that I just shared briefly as a way to think about what you're hearing. So where are they building coalitions? Where are they removing barriers? So with that, I'll turn it over to Eli. And maybe as Eli comes up, what questions, any concerns or comments before we switch gears?
Online, they can't see.
Online, they can't see this. I think that is our
laptop.
It might.
Oh, it's supposed to be facing out from us.
Okay.
So take
Okay.
Can you see the speaker or the slides?
The speaker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I can see the slide.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's okay. I don't really have slides, but it might be more important for others.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you said the
We're gonna put a camera on you. Oh, that's the camera. Okay.
How is
Other folks is not really looking at me. How about that? Do they see me now?
Yeah, you can see your face.
Okay, great. Hi there. Okay. So Hi, everyone. I'm Eli Holmes. I'm with NOAA Fisheries. In this session, I'm going to tell a short story of getting to yes and what getting to yes looked like for us at NOAA Fisheries. And this is a story of like this cartoon, getting something off the ground that felt absolutely impossible. So for many years, a group of us were taking it upon ourselves to help train staff across NOAA Fisheries. It was mainly at this time, it's like training our colleagues, and we're within our science centers. So NOAA Fisheries has a series of science centers around the country where we do our science, and these are kind of they're not isolated, but they're independent. And so we were each at different science centers, but we had this same interest in helping our peers learn better programming and improving their code. And also we understood that like it was really hurting us across NOAA Fisheries that we weren't sharing our code with each other. So we really wanted people to be adopting GitHub, in which we used a lot in NOAA Fisheries. For those of you who are at NASA, you will be shocked, but we just used it and we put things out there. At some point, and I don't know the history of this, it was my colleague who was involved in this who got a memorandum through NOAA that said, yes, you're allowed to use GitHub. And this, you should be sharing your work and you can use it. And so we are like, we got the letter. Okay, yay. That means we can use it however we want, which is what we did. And we wanted to have more people adopt this, and because we saw the advantages, especially like version control. It's like really important for writing good code. And so we were talking among ourselves, how do we spread this? How do we get more adoption? And you have to understand, like, I am a person who I really love innovation and new ideas. And I'm in a group of my peers and people I really like and I trust a lot. And I argued, I said, if we are going to spread this across NOAA Fisheries, which we all agree is what we need to do to create better code, we have to embrace an enterprise solution. I said, we cannot be going to our science centers and really having this super public and say, hey, everyone, put your code on GitHub free. I said that path is not going to happen. So if it's truly our goal to get everyone's code, we have to have an enterprise solution. And my, friends, colleagues, like, that's nice, Eli. One, we will never get the money. That costs money, and money is something we do not have. It's not that NOAA doesn't have money. NOAA has plenty of money, but like getting them to agree to spend on that, wow, that is going to be like impossible. So that was one thing. And then they're like, okay, if you were in that talk that Mike was giving before, you know that from the scientist's point of view, IT put the no in innovation. And so it was like, no, we cannot be letting IT know that we're using, GitHub. They will say everything has to be private and you cannot share things. That's what they're going to be. They are going to block everything. And huge trust issue also within this group. They felt that IT, they put the no in innovation, but they also would just break things. And so they would say, no, you cannot install Python because we don't have a process to approve that. And the scientists would be like they're like speechless. And like, you've got to be kidding. I have to convince you of this. So like all these kinds of stories, or like IT would be like, I can't reach my data. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we had to shut down that server. You what? You did you think to ask us? I'm sorry, I can't help you. I was told to do it, so I did it. But it's like, so they had lots of stories. So there's a lot of trust issues. So so how do we get this going? So we now have GitHub Enterprise across NOAA Fisheries, and everyone is encouraged to use it. It's really well supported, and Fisheries pays for this, many tens of thousands of dollars. How did it get there? So step one was in our group, we said, okay, we're going to be visioning. And it might have been 4 months, we met once a week for an hour, and we wrote our vision, a vision that we truly believed would never come to fruition. But if it were to come to fruition, which was impossible, it would have to happen. So we had to trust that we would take the first step, even though we believed the second step was impossible. So we did. We made a vision of what it would look like, and a world in which we had GitHub Enterprise and how we would use it, and how we would have shared governance with IT and the scientists. We had a vision of that. Nobody believed that shared governance with IT was possible, that is something that could happen. But we had to say, oh, fine, that's our vision. So we wrote that down. And once that was written down, we kind of all agreed, we had clarity there. And then it was a question, okay, how do we make this happen? And so next was, well, we need to get enterprise. We need to somehow get permission to have this set up. And it turned out that one of the science centers had it. So we were like, okay, well, they have it. Now, how do we convince the other science center? And so I approached my center and I said, well, this center has it. Do you mind if we get it too? And they said, no, it's forbidden. So excuse me? Like they have it. They were even a bigger science center than us. And they said, well, I don't care how they justified getting it, but they do not have permission to use that. It's not on the approved list. And I will not approve us use something that's not approved. I was like, oh my God. So it's like, okay, how do we get it approved? Well, it has to go through this, I forget the exact form. There's some official thing to get on this approved list of enterprise things that you can get. And I said, okay, great. What's the process for that? So, well, that's handled at headquarters. Thank you. Okay, so can you contact them? It's like, no, I can't contact headquarters. I would help you if I could, but I have personally no way to be asking that of headquarters. And sorry, I have I got to get to the punchline here. And they said, yeah, I can't help you, Eli. That's on you. You're kidding me. I'm like, I'm a research scientist. This is strictly an IT, it's an IT security thing. This is your process. And I don't have a way to start that process. The person you need to contact is not someone I personally, at my level, they are 2 rungs up, maybe 3. I cannot contact that person. And I cannot contact the person above me to contact them, because I would have to convince them that this is something that we need. And nobody in IT thinks we need this thing. Scientists saying you need this is not, convincing. I happened to be in a meeting it was some kind of data modernization thing. And my colleague had asked me to come to it to support him. And so I came there, and I did not know who was at the meeting. Mm-hmm. And I was typing, who were these other people? And it happened to be that one of the people was the head of our OCIO, or the person who was the head of the division who would know how to do the approval. And I just about died. I sit there, I was shaking. Fortunately, it was online. I was shaking, and I determined, I was like, this is my chance. This is my chance. I will say something. I cannot email this person, but I can say something at this meeting. And so we got at the end of the meeting, and I said, excuse me, can I ask you an unrelated question? And that's how we unlocked it. And she said, oh, yeah, well, let me ask the guy if it's on the things that could be approved. Oh, yeah, yep. Yeah, it's on the list. You can send in you can begin the process to ask for this to be approved. And it's like, how? What is that process? Like, oh, well, this is the form. No, it wasn't a form. It was a briefing we had to create. And she said, yeah, I'll email it to you. And that is what unlocked it. But what the foundation was having those conversations, creating the vision, even though the vision was impossible. And that sort of laid out what we needed to do. And then it was a matter of getting, like, at each step, trying to find the next step that would unlock things, and willing to have the courage, like in that meeting, to say, hey, can I ask you an unrelated question? Yeah. So, and it took another 2 years, but we got it all.
Thanks, Eli. So we asked, when we were preparing for this session, we asked for the speakers to give us just like a snapshot of this. And I know that, this bigger story is something that we're interested in too. I mean, I have a million questions for Eli after that, but in the interest of time, we're going to move on with Michelle Thornton from the ORNL DAC.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Thornton. I work at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the NASA ORNL DAC. Much like what Eli shared, kind of getting to the right people. But when Erin asked if I would be part of this, I was like, well, I don't know if I've made big changes or said, gotten to yes, or we all face these challenges, right? We all kind of need to push forward through some blocks. So this is more, I think it's smaller level, but I tried to think of what are the two things that I feel like have been most impactful from my time at ORNL DAC. So I'll share those two. So this is one. Estes, several years ago, had this great idea to start archiving through the DACs, the data centers, what we call facility instruments. And so these are airborne instruments that fly for a lot of various campaigns. And the data were all over the place. And so the image on the left-hand side is a JPL website where they distribute and still distribute AVRIS. There's several different AVRIS instruments, but AVRIS Classic data. So we were assigned AVRIS Classic to start with, and we went to this website and we spent a lot of time downloading data, terabytes of data that we were downloading from this website. And also a lot of really great contextual data that was also on this website. We didn't want to lose that. And so for several months, we went through this process and we're working on our internal on-prem processes to archive and get all the metadata and eventually publish this data. At the same time, NASA Earth data move to AWS was happening, and there was a push to publish data in the cloud. And internally at the ORNL DAC, we were trying to figure that out and kind of like beating our heads up against the wall for a while, not making a lot of progress while we were still like downloading all of this data. So at one point I was at a meeting and met up with some of the AVRIS scientists that I know of from different campaigns that I've helped manage. And there may have been some adult beverages involved, but it was kind of the conversation like Eli had, right? It was with the right person. And I said, how do we do this? How can we do this? And we kind of came up with this scheme about how we could do sort of a cloud native publication is the way we refer to this. So I went back to the DAC and I was pretty excited. I'm like, hey, I think I have an answer to this. And the middle top is kind of just a piece of our internal on-prem workflow. And I was surprised I kind of met some resistance to what I was pretty excited about. Like, yeah, we can do this. So Aaron asked the question while we were kind of brainstorming these ideas and said, well, what did you do? And I said, well, what did I do to kind of get that through? And really, it was just about building relationships, right? It was putting, my DAC folks who were really going to have to do that work in touch with the other folks who could help us with that process. And so we eventually, are able to do this more cloud native publication where we're not downloading these terabytes of data. And then Aaron asked the question, like, well, what was like an outfall of this? What can you say that that's really impactful? And I remembered that during the JPL fires, we at the ORNL DAC were contacted by JPL, and they said, "Hey, can you publish these fire data from Avris? We flew the LA fires yesterday. Can you get these published like tomorrow?" And because we had this workflow in place, we could, and we did. So that was cool. So we continue to work with JPL really closely to publish these data in a cloud data format, in a cloud process. So that was one. The other one that comes to mind is, the end story is I run the workflow that makes this data set called DayMet that today, it still surprises me how many downloads it gets, how many citations there are. It's a pretty popular data set. And this started in 1990. I bet it was it was the 2000s, which was only 12, showing my age. So, I was asked, I worked at NCAR in the GIS department, and I was asked if I would, help with DayMet. And I said, no, I'm a modeler. I'm not a modeler. I don't do modeling. And it was like, no, we just need a land cover mask and a DEM. I'm like, yep, I do GIS. I can do that. So that picture on the left was when I actually did GIS and some cartography. So that's a DEM, and all those little points are weather stations, which are input files for DayMet. And so the story was get all this together, and then the middle picture is this framework, this gridded framework that had been built that just put the input files into that, push the button, and it'll run the algorithm. And so I spent quite a while putting together not just the DEM and the land cover mask, but there were a lot of different inputs from a lot of North American Carbon Program was funding this work at that time. So, we had Mexican contacts, Canadian contacts, contacts from the US agencies that, I was putting together all of these input data files into a standardized format. So I get to the point, I'm excited. There's a lot of people saying, when are we getting DayMet? When are we getting DayMet? And, I got to this point where put it in the framework and it will run. It didn't run. Yeah. So I said, this isn't working. And the answer I got was something like, oh, well, that's science. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. And I had invested a lot of time. So I started actually digging into like the framework of running DayMet, and actually had to pull in software engineers when I was getting in over my head. But eventually got to the point where we could actually run the algorithm with these input files that I'd spent a while putting together. And, that's kind of the story, is I still run that workflow to make DayMet data on an annual basis, annual updates. So that was my contribution was how to not accept no, which we all do a great job of. So thanks.
Thank you. I want to go back to this slide here. I like the woodland creatures that are here. They're nice and calming. But I want to talk about, trauma, things like that. So one of the things that's important about this is to know that there's sort of an important process for this. And even if number one can't happen, it's very important to start. So in fisheries, several years ago, we started with OpenScapes, and we started training people, and we had a lot of discussions and talk about starting with the coalition of the willing or the coalition of the eager. So we started out with people who were interested in this. We had people who were out on their own, who were trying to use the cloud, try to modernize their workflow, and go through and say, okay, and trying to do that within their own space. They were, like Eli, running into problems with IT and with the organization not being quite up to speed. But they did the same thing. They sort of built that guiding coalition. They had the vision of say, okay, we want to build the cloud workflows, and they were working with sort of this coalition of willing, and they're sort of building this through. And as we go on, it can slowly build up. You get to a point where you sort of exhaust the coalition, or you run into these other barriers. And so what happened with us and in fisheries, and one thing that has really helped our sort of cloud migration efforts was ironically last year. So anybody in a federal agency remembers last year, we lost a lot of staff. We lost a lot of money. We got directives that say, you must take all of your data, you must move it to the cloud. We don't care if it works. We don't care that you don't have any people to do it. We don't care that we're not letting you spend any money to do it. So we have all of that kind of situation, which is very difficult to get through. And so, okay, what do? We went to the people who were already there. We went to the people who had already built the foundation and who were ready. And so from that, we already had the expertise. So we now had a real urgency that was in the agency. And we were being told that now we have to do this, and we have to train our workforce to use the cloud. If they weren't the coalition of the willing now, then the coalition of the being told. And we need to have the resources and the OpenScapes and all of that available. So in sort of we are now moving very quickly, very efficiently, and we are getting to the cloud. We are modernizing our workflows very efficiently. We have some sort of leading groups, such as our passive acoustics monitoring program. We have demonstrations of them. They've moved all of their workflow to the cloud, and we can say, look, they went from 3 months to do their workflow on-prem. Now it's 3 hours. And so you get these dramatic changes that we can point to as an early success and say, look, we can do this. We have the expertise. We have the foundation to already do this. So I want to go through this and say, even without the urgency, you can create the community that can support it. And then when the time comes, when an external force comes to make it possible, you are there ready to anchor the change that's at the end. So that's my hopeful story. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. What I love about your story too is the going back and forth in these steps, right? Like this is presented like it's some kind of linear thing and it just like happens like this. And we all know it doesn't. But this idea that like you built the coalition, formed the vision, and then the urgency came later is super interesting to me. Okay. And last but not least of our anecdotes is Julie Lowndes from OpenScapes.
Great. Thanks, Erin. Yeah, I'm excited to think about this getting to yes. And I framed it like the way Michelle did with how it started and how it's going. So this is kind of the context setting around OpenScapes. So in 2018, how it started is me experiencing this huge feeling of welcome from the open source community, from the R community, from Mozilla, and being able to build those kind of practices into my own marine ecology science team, and having this like amazing feeling of welcome and wanting to like turn around and welcome other people into this feeling of welcome in science. Around that time, we started having our first cohorts, champions cohorts with NOAA fisheries, which was a huge effort of communicating the idea of leading some kind of workshop, some kind of training that was going to help people collaborate around open source, having teams sign up to be part of a cohort, and communicating. This is working with Eli and her colleague, Eric Ward, like him knowing me from UCSB and NCs and saying like, oh my gosh, what your team is doing at NCs, like, can you come and do that with NOAA fisheries? Like, we'll do all this groundwork of organizing 40 people who want to show up and be part of this cohort. So that's how it started. And then now how it's going is like it's 2026. We have built this like amazing, like growing culture of welcome. It's a continuing story. There's not enough copy paste happy people to even show on this slide, but we have led 30 cohorts with NOAA fisheries and with NASA and European Space Agency, building a mentor community. Like we do have momentum. Like the vision is here. So the part, and I've talked about in many other talks and in many other ESIP sessions, we talk about this, how we work, how we grow this open science world. I want to talk about procurement though, as a part of getting to yes, because this too is open science infrastructure, and it's been hard to navigate and figure things out. I was a marine ecologist. I am a marine ecologist, at the university. Around 2018, I'd been in academia for 20 years, like my entire adult life. I thought that was where OpenScapes would be, and that's how it would work. Get grants to support any team that wanted to switch to open science. What a great idea! Like apply for all the grants, talk to all the open science funders, and it was barriers. It was like I was seeing barriers. I was working full time to build OpenScapes, but being paid half time in order to like stretch my grants out. So I was like a position of privilege that I had for not for a forever time, but I could like work at half pay. But this idea of becoming a small business owner was not a goal, but it was a way to, as Eli says, like ski through the trees. Like you kind of go around one barrier, you're assuming there's a way out somewhere and that you won't hit a tree before you get there, but like you don't know what the end is going to look like. But for these first NOAA fisheries champions cohorts back in 2018-ish, after having 40 people and these teams sign up for this cohort, they wanted to pay in two different ways for this cohort, because some were FTEs, some were NOAA staff, some were affiliates, and the university couldn't accept two payments for a single cohort. And that was one of the reasons why I was like, okay, well, if I stand up an LLC, I can say yes. And that was not the plan, right? But that was like a way to get to yes. And that was also a way to pay a software engineer and a inclusivity coach to help us design OpenScapes. Like the turnaround time to pay these small short-term bits of funding was impossible through the university. It was like, it was going to be 3 months for this small business owner in Canada before she could be paid. And it was like, that wasn't, I ended up paying her from my personal account and then getting reimbursed to the university myself in order to just have this go forward. So this idea of trying to include procurement in this open science infrastructure is like an interesting theme to me. And, there's not, this isn't just one way. And I, am not, I still identify with the university so much. And it's like this, it's not a story about like leaving as much as it's like evolving and like building around what I needed to do to figure out. But what was helpful for me in getting to yes was what I now can call like pause. When things are hard, like pause for a minute, like think about it, take a beat, and then fork. Like what have I seen before? What have I done before? What do I like or know about? And so I looked at people like Erin Robinson, who was a woman-owned small business. I looked at like Posit as a small 1% for the planet, like PBC Corporation. I looked at ways that I could get to yes, and I asked for help, which is part of the doing. Like asking for help is hard, especially you're the scientist. You're used to especially as a marine ecologist, like duct tape, PVC pipe. You're used to figuring it out and making do. But asking for help is something I'm still learning how to do. I think saying things out loud is the first step, because sometimes help can come to you, even if you don't know what to ask for. So yeah, that's where my getting to yes story is. And now I've been able to take what I've learned and grow with it. So this helped us get to yes with supporting NASA and supporting the European Space Agency, having this idea of okay, we got around one tree. Okay, let's go around the next one and try to see where we can go to support open science. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie, and thanks to all of our speakers. I wonder, what do you want to ask these speakers? Maybe have time for a couple of questions or comments. What did you hear out of these stories that strikes you?
Whoa.
Oh, and Ian, will you introduce yourself too?
Oh yeah. Hi, my name's Ian Carroll. I'm at NASA Goddard. I'm struck by the value of maybe it's not a valuable thing, but the success of this sort of chance encounters method of escalating concerns that Eli described so aptly. And I'm just wondering, obviously that works, but it's not ideal. How do we get around that? And I'm kind of wondering, what are there practices involved in openness that can help get so that you don't have to rely on those chance encounters? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
If our speakers could just come back up here, maybe that's the easiest, so they can respond to us too. Okay.
So I'll give kind of my take on that, which is that I think that chance encounters are really important, and that if you see within your organization that you don't have opportunities for this, then you should try to make those opportunities. So, for example, are there ways in which staff from lots of different parts of your organization, do they have places where they can come together, talk about what they're doing, where they have opportunities to, have those chance encounters? Then try to make that space for serendipity. It's not that it means that that's the only way. I think you also want systems, but I do believe that one of the things that I've seen is that we're within the government, we're really good at coming up with systems that we're hoping will improve things and create processes, but that can also really bog things down, which is not to say we shouldn't have good processes, but that I wouldn't want to only rely on that. I think these chance encounters are so important.
This is a great slide to have up, because I think the answer to that is that diverse, inclusive communities and teams are key. So in order to get the chance encounters are great, and I think it's good to sort of feel empowered enough to take a chance to speak at the meeting, to ask the other question. But having a formal community of practice, which is a diverse, that is inclusive of people, and building that community and coalition gives you the opportunity to, within your organization, say, this community wants X. And if you can have the community come together and write down a proposal that says, we want GitHub Enterprise, and that can be submitted forward. That can help skip through some of the other things. Also, if your community is large enough, there might be somebody in there who can say, yes, I can actually talk to that person. So it just, as the diversity of people and the relationships they have, somebody there's a bigger chance that somebody will be able to reach whoever you need. So we'll go back to this.
Yeah. And maybe that's actually
I have a different question.
It's okay. Just ask your question quick.
Oh, it's completely separate.
It's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I am currently in the middle of a situation where I am butting my head up against a no. And I was curious from your guys' perspective if there were situations where you were receiving a no, and by going past the no, you were risking rolling over somebody, and how you navigated that. Yeah, because I think we're running into an issue of what someone considers intellectual property that agencies do not consider intellectual property, and just wondering how you guys get through a no if you might be, how do you sidestep that? How do you sidestep hurting somebody?
What I heard Eli say and what I've encountered is there's, I became the DAC manager back in December. And so that put me in the ORNL line management, right? So and I had to quickly deal with that. And I heard Eli say, I can't talk to that person. And I'm having that same experience. Like, I am told you cannot talk to the DOE site office, for example. And so what I did, because I had to do something, was Eli had a chance encounter with the right person. But I mean, I've been at ORNL for long enough that I just started connecting with people that I knew, and kind of having not going around people, but having side conversations to figure out how to get to that level without me going to that level, if that makes sense. Yeah. So and I think the bottom line is relationships, right? And a lot of what we're talking about is, I've been at ORNL for long enough that I have relationships with people that, with this new position, it means something different. It's not just sort of a personal relationship, but now that I know those people, I can kind of leverage those relationships in ways that I didn't think I would.
I can think of two instances I've been in like this. So in one instance, I needed to get someone within our IT to agree to something, and I normally had good relations with this person, but in this situation, it was just, I felt like I was just kept throwing fire on it, and I was getting angry, they were getting angry, and realized I am not making this. I'm worsening this situation, and so I kind of recognized that I was doing that. I could feel it in myself that I wanted to steamroll over this person, and I had the power to do that, and I wanted to. And I stepped back, and I was like, not good. And I stepped back and I asked a colleague, and I confided in a colleague. I was like, I feel like I'm making this worse. And this was someone who I was working with. I said, hey, Aaron, could you take this over? I'm really having a hard time with this person. And, she was like, yeah, no problem. I work really well with this person. I'm happy to take this over. And so I really consciously stepped back to not damage this relationship and we got to, like, she was able to like work with this person and got to yes really easily. And I couldn't understand while this person was just telling her, yeah, that sounds great. It's like, wow. Okay. And so that was one example. And then another example was where, like, I tried for the longest time to get NOAA to agree that setting up Jupyter hubs was a good thing and that this could really unlock how we would deliver cloud computing. I tried many different avenues. I really believed in this. And then at some point, I got enough no's that I stepped back and I thought, is this the only solution? Am I just being obsessive on this solution? I'm too tied to that solution. I need to be open to other solutions. And so that's what I did. In that case, I was like, there are other solutions. And in fact, embracing a different solution and helping that team be successful is of more value than me being fixated on something that I really like. So those are two times I faced that.
Yeah, I'll add something to that real quick. That I want to say that, basically going back to the talk I gave earlier, is that we run into these problems, and oftentimes the key to addressing them is including people in the project planning from the beginning. People will react a little bit more difficultly if you come to them and say, I need this solution, instead of you come to them and say, this is my problem, how can we work through it together? So it's sort of coming to not with saying, I need this, but looking at, so bring them into the team and bring them into understanding what the needs are and working with them for the solution. You'll find that at least 70% of people are actually reasonable, and they will help you go through that. So, and it's a culture issue in general. I think for the going around, or people or not communicating or not being allowed to communicate, I think that's a culture issue within an organization that really needs to be addressed. So, but that's sort of a leadership culture thing that needs to be worked on.
The other thing I would add, just on the IP specifically, is I feel like when I come up against IP issues, that what I'm finding is like there's some issue, something's broken in the infrastructure pieces. And like you were saying, right, like how NASA views IP versus how this person is viewing IP are different. And I think there's something to think about around repair and like how, negotiating that. But I feel like that's tricky and hard.
Still negotiating it.
Yeah. That's good.
And there's so much scarcity. It's really hard to negotiate that.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the things that came up in the first question, though, was around this serendipity. And so I do want to make sure that we take advantage of the serendipity that we have in the room. And so the thing that I was hoping is that we could all help each other with some of the changes that we're hoping to make. And so I'm going to pivot us a bit abruptly into this in this bit, but we're halfway through the ESIP meeting and we're halfway through the week, and it's after lunch. And so I think we should stand up, but not quite yet. But in front of you, you've got a note card. And so what I'm hoping that you can do is if you're online and you want to write this on a piece of paper, that's great. And I'll think about work with Madeline about thinking about the online version of this too. But so in the room, you've got a note card, and write a change that something that you're trying to get to yes to in your world, and like the top third of the card. And also like give yourself a little signal so that you know that this is your card. It doesn't have to be your initials, but just like something that you're going to be able to pick your card back up, because we're going to pass them around, but we don't need to know whose card is who. So just the change. So take about 30 seconds and write the change on your card. And I'll do that too. If you need a new card, just raise your hand. I'll get a new card to you. Oh yeah. I have tons more pens. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so the way that this is going to work is that it's a little like pub trivia grading. I don't know if any of you have done that, but we are going to pass these cards around and just make sure you don't have your card. And then there's going to be another question that'll pop up. And that question you'll answer for the card that you have in front of you. And it doesn't matter if you don't quite understand what the person was asking, but this is really a way for us to just get some fresh input into these changes that we are trying to make. So first of all, just start passing your cards around. Just pass. And you don't need to know. Keep passing. You don't know. You don't know.
Yes.
So everybody got a card that is not theirs. Yeah. Everybody got a card that's not theirs. Perfect. Okay, so read your card and see what it says. And the first thing that we are going to try to help this card with is who could champion or help or unblock this idea. So and it could be types of people, it could be specific names. So types of people are fine, but who could champion or help to move this forward? Who should be in this coalition?
Can we just answer?
Just answer on this card. Yeah, just
Right on the card?
right on the card.
Okay.
Switchboard. Okay.
Okay. Maybe. Maybe 2 cards.
What's that? We have to, right?
I think you are.
Who could help unblock?
I don't know what's called this person. I think it can be just looking at it.
We're just sort of running the house.
Yeah. Completely.
Right?
Yeah. Like one of my questions. That's really. Yeah, kind of.
We'll wrap up your jotting. We're going to switch to our second question. But first we're going to pass. So do the same passing thing again. So I'm going to pass over here so that I'm doing this one.
Oh my God, I was gonna go over and say, like, it's so good to see. So good.
Okay.
Really mix it up. Sure.
Oh yeah. Get your phone cards and pass again.
She'll say something.
If you wind up with your own card, pass again.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna get to mixing the vision. So what would make someone say yes to this?
Appreciate people making me feel good about my time.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Everybody's to write on chalkboard so the kids read it.
Yeah. Okay, so as you finish, you could start doing the passing thing again. Pass and pass. I'll take it again.
Q2. No, we got. Oh wait, are we still on Q2?
No, we're going to Q3. Do you have a new one? Okay, so as you get a new one, we're going to Q3.
A little bit, sorry. Reading.
And what are the barriers for this change? And maybe what are the ways to, ideas for countering those objections? Everybody need to switch. Switch.
Great. Hey, let's. Switch. Anybody need to switch?
Okay, so now, like, what are the objections to this change that this person is suggesting?
Wait, that, gives a character. Yeah. Questions you or?
Counter to 3. So, like, if you give them an objection, like, no, IT doesn't, like, IT is going to say no to this. Like, if you have any counter to, like, well, go around IT, like, this, that kind of. But if you don't have a counter, don't. Yeah. Little devil's advocate. And then as you're done, start the passing. You have one more round of this passing.
Oh no, this is the one. The accuracy stack.
Passing.
Well, it's like, come on, there's more history with each. Yeah.
Yeah, no rush. Okay, just take your time. It's hard.
I'm pushing experts every year.
Yeah. Those are passing pass.
That's more rounds of longer it takes to read
Right,
that.
It's a little short. And to decipher, because Shell's comment about that today. But my handwriting, I just realized is like the worst.
No, that's why I was pointing to everyone.
Yeah.
I was like, this is making me feel like. You should have switched one more time.
Yeah, so we're gonna switch one more time. So yeah, so start mixing if you're done with your card. Just go ahead and start mixing. And we have one more new question. Yeah.
Oh, so another question coming after.
Yes. So if you're done with barriers, start switching. And
We should read the front side.
yeah. Is that a new card, Eli, or have you just stayed with your Steam card?
Oh, so I've been right here. The first time I like about 12 people that are really you just need a willing person to do
Okay,
that.
so if you've got a new card, then the last question is a quick win. Like, what is a quick win that a person could do trying to make this change? And as you're done with question 4, if we can try to find our cards again. So I think probably the easiest is if they come maybe to the front and then you can pick up your card, play your card.
Well, that's something like you say.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so cards are coming back, and if you see your card, you can grab it.
No, you can
Everybody brings a card.
Go sit down.
So we take our own card back.
If we see it.
Again.
No?
Well,
We're taking a picture because sorry, I want to see what everybody was doing. That's cool. That's actually
Putting all the cards there,
Okay.
and then we'll find ours.
Yeah.
But they want to.
Okay.
Yes. Super.
Yeah, the people who answered questions before me also changed the way that I understood the problem as we went. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's also valid. I like to see them too. Now I have to go for
Look at them like, wow, that is a problem. There you go.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't frame my problem very well. A couple of people. What's so good? Right?
Yeah.
Martini.
Our most Bill has a card in her hand. I think most folks can start taking cards. So if you see your cards, I've gotten that picture.
Yeah, that's mine. I put it and I love it.
It's just funny how the interpretation of time so sorry, I thought you I was like, wait,
Okay, so it's
Have a chair.
Okay, so as you get your card back, just take a look at it and like just check out what folks wrote to you. And maybe take a minute to just think about like what stands out or what's interesting. And then what I want us to do is to shift into maybe fours wherever people are sitting near you and just like share a little bit about what came up for you as you saw other people's questions and then for your own group. So when you're ready to turn into fours, just turn into fours. And if so just what came up for you? Yeah, so just like small groups in your area.
I was actually
Oh, sure.
class. So I just went
So I've been about 5 years. I've been on the and so here the other side I've been on the side
but so
Andy left me the
opposition. Yeah. So having the tools to navigate where they're yeah, that's great.
everything. But then there's this.
Close to your goal.
Forget
So my
exactly. This is feel at 5 years. So
yeah, so the first person is I was thinking about the red research library. They Yeah, and that's having to be that's to everybody has issues with some others, and I think it's just other than the last week, we have like they like find out
I know many streets, and I've been
this goes on to housing. Just housing. Leader pay is like items.
I know you guys.
The line I thought we were doing. I didn't promise all that. You guys were like so. But it's been, yeah. It could be a day. Maybe go to I mean, yeah, that's kind of I mean, just all the just because that's like, oh, yeah, my problem.
Even though.
Well, I think like
Let's start to bring it back together. I always love interrupting breakouts when people are like, nope, not going to do it. So maybe 30 more seconds. Last sentence. This is your warning. You're being called back from your breakout rooms. So I wanted to take just a few minutes as we wrap up this this session to surface what we have in common. And so what were some of the things that stood out to you on your card? What were things
besides the handwriting?
That's right. We do a lot of typing these days. Like who knew that we needed to write? Yeah. Yeah, Leslie.
I did notice that whether the responses were either longer or shorter, they were like the one that I got back, the responses were pretty short compared to the ones that I saw, but I still felt they were useful. And then it did come up to a step 4 that I had never thought of before. So really happy about that.
I think throughout the cards, the ones I read and then the one that I got back, the responses all turned and like reframed the problem in some way. So they weren't just useful, they changed my mind. including changing my mind about other people's problems as I was reading the things they were trying to change.
I think getting a lot of stuff from different people resulted in, there were definitely some totally unexpected things on mine that I wouldn't have thought of.
I think a lot of what we've been talking about throughout the session is maybe too obvious to say, but it's analogic reasoning. We're looking for what is this problem like and what have solutions to problems like this one been like, and how is the solution I'm proposing different from what came before for dealing with similar problems, I think is an important question to ask too.
Yeah, just reflecting that as I love all the responses. Like one of the final answer, I feel like is a really, really good one to implement. So I'm really excited to think about how to do this. But I really like these questions, and I think that these could be applied to, like, I want to use this as a framework, because I actually really think sometimes we think these changes seem really daunting, and like, oh my gosh, just taking a step back, like thinking about the opposition, thinking about one small change. Like, I just think this is a really helpful way to break things down, and also get others' perspectives, because I wouldn't have come up with what I think of now as like kind of an obvious solution that I hadn't thought of.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to echo Amy that this is a framework to work from is fantastic, and it was really fun on the cards, and we all mingled. So yes, I love it. Something that came up in our group was how this has also been a quick, helpful way to maybe realize that our initial problem statement could be refined. So like we maybe, it's a quick test bed of like, is this a problem, like the way to describe my problem going forward, or should that be refined?
Yeah, that was my first reaction. Is like when I first read it, I was like, oh, okay, I need to work on my elevator pitch. And although I did agree that, oh yeah, this is like highlighting what I do think that's the next step. But I think for me, like the process of writing it down was good. Even if I think I didn't write it down in the way I would like I need to work on that. It also, like in reading the solutions, I realized I am really fixated on certain solutions. And that's a barrier here. I need to like somehow get myself into the like see lots of different solutions before like narrowing down.
I think kind of going off of what other people have said, I think having just the diversity of thoughts really helpful, right? So you don't get stuck in your own ways of thinking. And so I noticed that as well. And to go even further, like surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you is really helpful.
One thing that I noticed was that as I was reading some of the cards that I got to me, is that we are too technical to put it that way. Because we're experts in what we do. So when it comes to writing the problem, we know exactly what it is, and we write it in the terminology that we understand. But sometimes the people that we need to that we want them to say yes to us may not have that technical knowledge. So simplifying the problem statement is definitely something that I saw that could be useful.
What we see is a set of strategies that are emerging, which was really what I hoped that we would get to in this session, of how we address changes, and like multiple responses were useful. All responses had some kind of value. Reframing the problem, unexpected contributions coming in from the side. I think putting yourself in spaces where you can get feedback. And I think to Eli's point too, being open to accepting feedback. I think, are there other strategies that we want to jot down to make sure that we remember as we think, as we sort of leave this space? You came in thinking about getting to yes was one thing. What are you leaving with now?
I guess I'm leaving with getting to 15% yes is maybe like faster prototyping than I expected.
Wait, do you mean that it will take, you can get to 15 faster, or that, can you just restate what you said?
Well, so Aaron asked, was thinking about strategies we could take away from, but then also like we came here to a session called Getting to Yes. What are we taking away? And I think like we shared stories of getting to yes that were maybe years long. And I guess like reframing the problem, or like thinking about barriers, or thinking about how to say yes, or like that maybe seems like a little bit of like 15% to yes, that even if it's not going to be a linear path towards 100%, it just seems like progress, I guess. Yeah. Like your foot in the door, or like, or even just that last question, I think really resonated with me, is like, what's the 15% here?
So first of all, I want to thank you all for coming. Second, I want to punt to Eli for just a second, because this was a brainchild of Eli. And, I think that it was really wanting this, like the messiness of what change is like and how we move through it. And so Eli, I want to give you just a second if you want to say anything to close us out, or what you're taking away.
Just a second.
Okay. And while she thinks, I also want you all to think about like, what's the next step that you're going to take? And I think ESIP is an awesome place to start to turn ideas into action. And so, what's something you can do in the second half of this week that would make progress? And you don't have to say
anything.
Yeah,
no. So like, the idea for this session, came out of, Julie and I meet, I guess, weekly, kind of, planning and talking about ideas when we were talking about ESIP. And then, I said, like all of these things that we want to make happen, they require getting to yes. And I was really thinking about, getting to yes with other groups, and especially like in, conflict situations. I gave examples of like getting to yes with IT and IT security, and having to really like deal with trust issues, and how do you deal with that, and how to get to the place where you want to be, which is this collaborative working environment, which we have now with and yeah, and I think that what I really like about this exercise is I think that getting to yes from all the different yeses that I've seen starts with sort of visioning what does yes look like. It's the first step. What is this thing I want to change? And then figuring out what does the yes look like, and yeah, as that being the starting point. And it's a yes, not with the other people, but there's also, I haven't really talked about it, but I'm sure on many of the cards, it was about how do you get to yes with yourself.
I like that. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for the idea, Eli. And thanks to all of our speakers. And thank you all for coming. This was really awesome.
Yeah.